Now coming back to Brother Biniam, also, Eritrea has responded actually in a manner where it seems that they kind of complement each other, those letters, both the Eritrean and the Ethiopian government. And I like how they both mention each other. And it really, it made me feel something as I read it. So, what is how do you analyze it? I'm sure this is not, I mean, it's also written in the letter. Such accusation are not new for Eritrea. You have been doing it. There is this sense of that telling the US you have been doing this since 2009 against Eritrea. The blackmailing and the intimidation of these both countries because of the war, and also it reminds, it's not also mentioning those two countries, that you see the unity of two countries, but also uh, Eritrea is telling the US in like to stop this ill-advised approach. I mean, yeah, there are all these things. It's just a highlight for me from what I read. But I want to ask you. So yeah, first of all, how do you analyze it, and then secondly, does it do any good actually for the African leaders? I mean, to be strong while they talk, when they articulate, or when they write a response. What good will bring us, to stand on our feet and say what we don't accept, we don't accept? I mean, what is the lesson to take from this, or does it bring any good for the country actually? Because US will continue as long as we are not that economic powerful. Yeah, back to you.
Thanks, Mahlet. Yeah, Kwame did a really good job with the statement released by Ethiopian Foreign Ministry. I already mentioned some of the issues raised by Eritrean Foreign Ministry as well. They complement each other in a number of ways. The only difference is that Ethiopia still is keen to maintain its relationship with the US, and Eritrea doesn't care at all at this stage. Yeah, you could see it. But Ethiopia mentioned, which Kwame also raised, but it need to be accentuated a bit. It is an adversarial, unilateral and adversarial. Yeah, this it's not only inflammatory; it's an adversarial. You only expect from your this kind of accusation from your adversaries. And Eritrea side, it's about blackmailing and intimidating Ethiopia and Eritrea, and propping up TPLF. That's what this is meant to do. And then, of course, it is also to find a way to perpetuate this chaos, and eventually to find a way to intervene. Yeah. Force yourself into it, yeah, meddle in this process, and then the hope that you would extract some geopolitical gains. And it is within that context that Eritrea phrased it a little bit more aggressively than the Ethiopian government. Yeah, still there is hope, and it said in the statement there was hope that they would, relationship would be made. But Eritrea said, that this is it. You're not learning anything. No lesson is learned from all those years of inflicting pain and creating discord and chaos in the region. It hasn't helped. Propping up TPLF is not going to gain you any geopolitical benefits. And if you continue to go that path, you're going to create more chaos. So being able to speak out is very important. But speaking out just for sake of speaking out is not also good. Yeah, we need to understand, why is the US doing this? It is behaving like a judge. Remember the word determined. It means ruled. It means decided. So they had acted as a jury and a judge, literally. They decided, and not now forcing Ethiopia to disband all local institutions and initiatives and hand it over to the US. Yeah, basically that's what they are asking, and it's not attainable arrangements. Yeah, and in attempt to do that, in attempt to prop up TPLF, salvage TPLF, and of course it goes. And people think that it's because they love TPLF. No, that's not the agenda. The agenda is not because they care about human rights. It's not because they care about those atrocities that they claim that has taken place in the course of this conflict. It is simply because it facilitates their intervention in this region, their intervention in our internal affairs. Intervening in our meddling in our internal affairs meant that then they can shape, reconfigure, politics to serve own interests. That's basically what they are trying to do, blackmailing to get something out of it. Remember, they were intimidating us with the word genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that they call the genocidal war, yeah,
Yeah.
and they're doing the same thing in Ukraine. They're telling us now Ukraine is a genocidal war, Putin's genocidal war. Remember, it was Abiy and Isaias's genocidal war.
Mm-hmm.
So the narratives are more or less the same. What are they doing with this? It's a propaganda. Then you malign them and eventually extract something out of them. And remember, once they have instituted this mandate at the UN Human Rights Council, it just sits as an albatross. It never goes away. They continue to renew them. Yeah. And obviously, Ethiopia was very aggressive in trying to get this mandate being disbanded and dismissed. But I think somehow there was some negotiation with the UN, I mean the EU, the hope that they won't be embarrassed. I think the Reuters article mentioned something along that line, and they told Ethiopia that this is going to be its last term, and Ethiopia wanted the report not to be read. That meant it won't be registered, whatever report that they're coming up with. But then now they would have that report. But then that report would be used as a propaganda tool for the Europeans and the Americans to somehow intimidate, malign, extract something, political gains, I don't know, geopolitical gains out of it. And then it is very important to frame this. Whatever they're doing, it is within the context of the geopolitical competition that they see as coming from China. That rivalry. It is within that context that they're trying to push those issues as a big deal, and want to use that as a carrot, as a form of weaponizing it in order to somehow intimidate, push us, pit us against each other at times, and cause discord and chaos, and eventually that would allow them to meddle into our own affairs, and that's ultimately what it is. And then the Eritrean government is very blunt. It just puts it, you were this aggressive since 2009. You did this, you did that, and you dismissed TPLF's use of child soldiers. In fact, remember the in their newspapers, and I would say
Mm-hmm.
the Western propaganda tools, they were lionizing children, child
Exactly.
soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We do remember. Yeah.
And if Ethiopian government or Eritrean government had done that,
Wow.
you would know the kind of backlash there would have been, a media campaign against it. Yeah, but obviously for TPLF it is nothing. And of course, it must be underlined: we care about human rights. We concerned about each other's well-being. We see each other as brothers, and I've never seen anybody talking about the Tigrayans must be this. We would have to. People in that region care about each other. Yeah, of course there are discords that they have created, the tensions, they've fissures. They're trying to expand them. Instead of we trying to close the gap, and then what they're trying to do is to pull us apart.
Yeah.
Remember, the more narrative is established about, Eritrea did this to you, Ethiopia did this to you, yeah, Ethiopian soldiers did this to you, then you're perpetuating that tension and conflict, hatred. It's not about mending fences. It's not about creating peace. And what the Ethiopian government is talking about is let's create transitional justice is all about, let's recognize the whatever mishaps that took place, whatever crimes committed, allegation, let's investigate them, recognize who's the victim and who's the victimizer, and then try to find a way to create accountability and move forward in a healing fashion. Yeah, that's what transnational justice is all about. Yeah, in order to heal, the wounds. Yeah, there are wounds. Obviously, this is war. This is devastating war. Yeah, and it was one of the most brutally fought war, if I have to add, in the modern African warfare, and that is not registered that effectively. And within that, I'm sure you would find some crimes here and there, and I may not be in the way that was exaggerated in a fashion that the Americans are trying to relate to us, or some of the TPLF cadres are trying to tell us. But obviously, there are crimes committed. There would be crimes committed, and those had to be investigated. And whoever the party has done this would have to be accounted for. Yeah, but not this, lousy stories that they have been telling us. 120,000 women being raped. It's just nonsense. Yeah, it's just even some of the political leaders, Tigray political leaders that were there as a transnational leader, government of Tigray, the previous one, not this one. They were very concerned, and when they went and investigated, and they told us in a number of interviews that this was a true story. Yeah, there were so many lies around this. They dismissed it, and this is meant to just propagandize this in order to bring in as much troops as possible. Recruitment tool, and the more you throw in hateful stuff, yeah. The more angry the youth become, and the more they will be mobilized into joining them. Yeah, that was the strategy, and now they've been overstretched and used it as a major propaganda tool. And I think that has to be underscored. But we still care about everyone, and I think Eritrean government cares about the conditions under which the people of Tigray is living, and people of Amhara, people of Afar, and even the broader Ethiopia, broader region, needed to be needs to move forward into building our future, and hopefully for the better. Yes, he's back. Welcome
Thank
back.
you. Thank you
Sorry,
very
guys.
much.
My network was having a little bit of problem, but I'm back.
No, it's good. He was also he was not in the stream, but I think for part of it he has listened what you have said. But really, yeah, thank you very much, Brother Binyam, for that. For me, the highlight was that Ethiopia is keen to mend the relationship with the US, whereas Eritrea doesn't care to mend the relationship with the US. Other than that, yes, the letters do complement each other. Yeah, that's indeed a difference, a big difference, exactly. I mean, that's a whole other topic, a whole other show it can be, how things went. But and then another highlight is, at the end of I really want to read this. At the end of the letter, the Eritrean government said, the people of Ethiopia and the region has, the US, I think, has no moral. The US has no moral or legal right to act as a prosecutor or a judge in these matters. That was